Greenwald. He, of course, is the journalist who originally wrote about Edward Snowden's leaks. He's also a columnist on civil liberties and US national security issues. Thanks for joining us, Glenn. Announcing a series of concrete and substantial reforms today, Barack Obama announced sweeping changes to the way US intelligence snoops on America and the rest of the world. So mission accomplished for you and Snowden at this point?
Changes are substantial, and I certainly don't agree that they're sweeping. There are some reasonable and positive steps that he proposed, although even those are quite vague. But the essence of the NSA system that has created such worldwide anger and debate, namely that the NSA spies on hundreds of millions of people every day without even a whiff of suspicion that they've done something wrong, will be preserved even if all of President Obama's proposals are implemented. And I think the changes are far more cosmetic and symbolic than they are substantive or sweeping.
Well, let me put it to you that you're being unfair. He outlined a number of reforms that would increase transparency into the collection of metadata and the legal rationale for it. He also called for the creation of a panel of outsiders that will represent the public before the FISA court. He also said that a court order will now be required before the government can get access to that data. These are pretty substantial and substantive, perhaps is the word, given that beforehand, as you have suggested, they've just been snooping on individuals with no oversight at all.
No, they're not, actually. And if you look at the controversy that has been triggered in the United States and around the world, and what that debate has been about, I think you'll find that very little of that is actually affected in a meaningful way by what President Obama has proposed. I agree that putting an advocate before the FISA court and tightening up some of the restrictions on how foreign leaders can be spied on are good ideas, although, again, he offered very little specifics about, for example, what those standards will be or who will hold the metadata. But what has caused the controversy and the anger is the idea that we have a secret surveillance agency that every single day collects hundreds of millions, actually billions, of data points about people's telephone and email calls, even though they're completely law-abiding and innocent. And he has not proposed to end any of that or really to stop that in a meaningful way. That will endure. And that's why I think the changes are more at the margin than the center.
Perhaps for this reason, Mr. Obama didn't directly address Snowden's case today, but he did, Glenn, say that the classified information that was leaked in recent months could impact US security well into the future. And this going forward is a big problem for him. Let's just have a listen to what he said.
If any individual who objects to government policy can take it into their own hands to publicly disclose classified information, then we will not be able to keep our people safe or conduct foreign policy. Moreover, the sensational way in which these disclosures have come out has often shed more heat than light, while revealing methods to our adversaries that could impact our operations in ways that we may not fully understand for years to come.
He says you've jeopardized national security, and he can't have that.
Every single time there has been a report over the last 50 years that has disclosed that which American political leaders want to keep secret, going back to the Pentagon Papers, through the Bush era, disclosures over torture and rendition and abuses at Abu Ghraib and all sorts of other programs, including NSA abuses, the U.S. government says exactly the same thing, which is what President Obama just said. Oh, national security has been endangered by bringing transparency to our government. And there's never any evidence presented that it's true, and there's been no evidence presented here that it's true.
Glenn,
the only thing that has been damaged by the disclosures is the reputation of American political officials like President Obama.
There is also no evidence that national security hasn't been breached, that Americans aren't actually in a worse position now as a result of what you and Snowden have done. Come on.
I think that statement that you just made is as illogical as it gets. What you're actually
you told me, though, there's zero evidence that national security has been harmed. And I'm saying there's zero evidence that it hasn't.
If you want to make statements, no, excuse me. If you want to make statements like that, as inflammatory as the one you just made, you need to then remain quiet so that I can answer your question. If you just want to filibuster, I'll hang up and you can go and do that to your audience alone without me. I'm going to address what it is that you just said. What you're demanding is that evidence be presented opposite of a negative. I also can't prove to you that the NSA isn't controlled by Martians. The presumption, the burden is on the government. If they want to come forward and say that national security has been damaged by these disclosures, to present evidence that their claims are true. They have a history of making that claim only for it turned out to be entirely false.
All right, sir, we're going to have to leave it there. We do appreciate your time and what has been a very big day for, I know you, Mr. Snowden, and indeed the President of the United States of America, Glenn Greenwald. We thank you. Well, this is one of the hottest trending stories.